Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. This week's video is the second employment theme video voted by you, and you've chosen the topic of more tips and strategies for employment. So today I really want to offer you one very powerful high-level strategy, and I'll go through how it applies to 4 very specific scenarios. So we'll cover networking when you're going for a job interview, when you're communicating with others at work, and finally, how to get other people at work to communicate better with you. And so that is basically how to manage your manager and get them to treat you in a more productive way. So I know that's a lot to go through, so I'm going to try and keep it pretty short today. The good news is if you want a much more in-depth discussion about any of these things, I'm actually running one at the end of the month. It's like an online interactive discussion thing, so check that out. Okay, so ready? So the high-level strategy I'm offering you today, right, the goal to have in your mind of what you're trying to focus on is keeping people around you happy. Satisfied customers come back, satisfied bosses don't fire you. So if you do your job and keep the people around you happy, you're in a really good position. So I know that's kind of an abstract goal, just keeping people happy, and maybe you're thinking that managing relationships isn't really your thing, but fortunately, managing relationships and specifically managing the emotions of other people is the 4th quadrant of emotional intelligence, which happens to be my special interest. What a coincidence. So you've probably heard a million times over how emotional intelligence helps with communication and relationships, and they say that it is a bigger success predictor than IQ and things like that. So by the end of this video, after I've shared some really simple, practical ways of how to keep people happy, hopefully you'll have a better, deeper understanding as to why people say things like that. So why is our focus going to be on keeping people happy? The short answer is that when people like you, they're nicer to you, they talk to you more, they cut you more slack, they cooperate with you better, they give you better deals. If someone likes you, they will imagine that you're doing an even better job than you are. And unfortunately, the converse is also true. If you do an amazing job but piss off all of the people around you, they will be extremely reluctant to acknowledge the value in the work that you've done. So how do you make the people around you like you? How do you make them happy? It's very, very simple. Make them feel good. So have that in the back of your mind as we go through these 4 scenarios. Okay, so the first one is a very, very quick networking tip. So I find for myself, when I'm trying to talk to people and introduce myself, people are always talking to each other and I don't want to interrupt. And I'm kind of waiting for them to finish their conversation before I say hello. And what I find is that there's never a good time. So my tip is to just interrupt and introduce yourself. So bearing in mind that the goal is to make the other person feel good, we have to make sure that we communicate very clearly that we care about them, which is the opposite of being rude. So for example, I might say, "Hi, sorry to interrupt. I don't mean to be rude. I just wanted to introduce myself." I might follow up with a quick compliment saying, like, "I've been following your work. It's really good. It's really nice to meet you." So here's the important part. People don't like feeling awkward. That's not a fun feeling. So if I introduce myself and they keep talking to me and that's great, then I can stay and chat. That's fine. But if it feels a little bit awkward, I need to leave straight away. And fortunately, because I've framed the whole thing by saying, "I don't mean to be rude, I just wanted to introduce myself," I can say, "Well, thanks, I'll just leave you two back to your conversation. I'll speak to you later, bye." And what that does, I've come in, I've made an impression, I've given them a compliment, I've introduced myself, and then I've left and everyone's happy. So that's my quick tip on networking. Okay, so I'm in a job interview. How do I make sure the interviewer feels good, right? I want to leave a good impression. I want them to like me, because if they like me, they will imagine that I'm better than I actually am at everything. The short answer is that attitudes and emotions are contagious. So if I'm anxious, the other person is going to feel that anxiety. So what that means is that me being confident and positive makes a huge difference, even if everything else is the same. So what can I do to help myself with my own confidence going into a job interview? What I've found is that I will prepare one thing. I will prepare 1 or 2 minutes worth of speaking about myself, telling the interviewer everything I want them to know. And if I'm really, really confident in that 1 or 2 minutes, and I can practice this a million times over before I get into the interview, then when I get in there and they ask me the number one interview question that they always ask, which is, can you please tell me a bit about yourself? Instead of freaking out, I will have 2 minutes worth of really good material saying, these are my marks at uni, I studied this, I've got this experience, I'm a great fit for this job because of this, and I really want this job. I've got my first impression out of the way, I seem confident, it doesn't matter how nervous I am on the inside if I perform that 1 or 2 minutes well. The third scenario is around your own communication at work. How do you make sure that someone else feels good when you're delivering a message that might be a bit difficult to hear? Sometimes it can be hard to deliver a really sensitive, nuanced message to get that point across. So instead, I'm offering a 3-step approach. So the first thing you do is frame the conversation of setting the expectations of what's about to happen. The second thing is actually delivering the message. And the third one is checking in with the person emotionally afterwards to see how it actually landed. So an example of framing a conversation could be something like, hey, I need to have a chat with you. I've got some feedback from the boss that I need to let you know about. And I just want to say up front that I know I can be quite blunt sometimes. So if anything I say sounds really harsh, I really don't mean it to. It's just that this is some really important feedback that I need to tell you today. See how that sets up for what is about to happen. And then once the other person knows what's about to happen, I can deliver the message in the most sensitive way that I am capable of. And then at the end, I can just check in and say, look, I know that was a big message. How do you feel about that? How was that for you? And the great thing about checking in is that I'm asking you how you feel, which means I don't have to guess how you feel. I don't have to predict how you're going to be reacting because I've invited you to actually tell me. And then once I have that information of how it landed for you, then even if it went terribly, at least I know and I can actually do something about it in the future. The fourth scenario comes directly from a comment on last week's video where Jean was asking how best to tell colleagues how to communicate with you. And this one is really about learning to be assertive and stand up for my needs when I'm asking other people to work with me. Okay, so to illustrate, I'll give you a quick example of an incident that happened between myself and a manager a few years back. Basically, this particular manager had, if I'm honest, quite a negative reputation for micromanaging. And we sat down in the morning and agreed that I would get a particular task done by the end of the day. And everything was going fine until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He comes to my desk and says, how's it going? Is it done yet? Where is it? And I told him very bluntly that we said 5 o'clock. It's not done yet. I'm actually doing other work at the moment because I'm working to the 5 o'clock deadline, which we agreed to. So when I say I'll do something, it means I'll get it done. So if you wanted it done by 3 o'clock, you needed to negotiate with me at the start of the day that you want it done by 3 and I can get it done by 3 for you and we'll work it out that way. So I was visibly upset and I definitely told him off, but the upshot of that conversation was that while all the other guys in the office were having issues and complaining about micromanaging, we actually developed a really, really good professional, working, and eventually personal relationship. And I didn't have any of the issues that the other guys had because we knew how to work together. So let's notice a couple of things that I did in that situation. The first one is that I stood up for myself and I said the message that I needed to say, which is, don't come to my desk asking for work before it's due. The next point to note is that I was angry and I did tell him off, but I didn't do it in a disrespectful way. I was not rude, I was not insulting, I was not aggressive. And finally, and this is the biggest one in terms of making sure he leaves that conversation feeling good, is I gave him a positive way out. Next time, do this and everything will be better. Right? I appreciate that you want this done as quickly as possible, but if you want to work with me, this is the best way that we can work together. At the end of the day, we can't force someone else to work the way we would like to work. I often hear people, and I've had these thoughts myself, wishing that other people were more direct with me, or wishing that they would listen when I say, please be direct, and they still beat around the bush and they still expect me to guess what they actually mean. So if someone doesn't want to be direct with me, there's nothing I can do about it. I can get really angry, but that doesn't help the situation either. If I am angry at them, and if I insult them, and if I make them feel bad for not doing what I want them to do, they're not going to like me very much, and they're going to have even less of a reason to cooperate with me. But if I make someone else feel good, they will like the fact that I've made them feel good. They'll go, you know what, I want to make you feel good too. I'm going to do this other thing for you. And all of a sudden, they have an incentive to do something for me so that we work better together. So I guess the moral of the story here, in terms of how to stand up for yourself in the workplace to get your own needs met, is that it's very important to deliver a message without being insulting or derogatory or making the other person feel bad. So there are actually a lot of tools to do exactly what we've been talking about in terms of being assertive. It's obviously way too big for me to touch on in this video. So if you're interested in more tools around that, I would suggest looking up non-violent communication. Of course, if you want to hear more and discuss these kind of things in more detail, you can come along to the online event next week. Now, that is the first event of its kind that I've run, and the purpose is to see if that's the kind of thing that people are interested in. It's not free, it's almost free, which means that only people who are interested will buy a ticket. So if you're interested, come to the first one so that I know that you're interested and I can do more in the future. In case you need another reason, I'll also be giving away a $20 gift voucher for Happy Hands sensory toys, so that should be fun. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. There's only one more on the theme of employment in this series, so I'll see you again next week for that, or online at this event possibly. Okay, bye. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for weekly content just like this one. If you'd like to get even more involved, you can join the discussion on social media or support me by becoming a patron. Finally, I value your time, and you'll notice all my videos are ad-free, so please help me to cover what you want to hear by leaving me a comment and telling me what you think. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you another time.